keep, if you want the edits, they are there as an option for you. So the first thing I want to talk about, or at least on this list of things that we're going to be going through today, one of the things is to go over some friendly reminders about our thesis and our skeleton. Here is my friendly reminder. If your proposition, your thesis, your transition, and those subpoints, or sorry, those main points and subpoints, the things that are all included in your skeleton are correct, you are more likely to be set up for success than somebody who has not ensured that each of those claims are correct. And I say that because how argumentation works is that a claim, or making a first claim, if you make a first claim, all students are lazy. If I make that first claim and that first claim is not true, the rest of the argument then negates itself and also proves untrue. All students are not lazy. That grand all-encompassing idea is already problematic. So ensuring that your first claim is one that is true, that is valid, that can be measured, that is not a fallacy in its own, a fallacy, much like a that would be a bandwagoning fallacy, whereby I suggest that, you know, everybody's always blaming like students for being like so lazy. Oh, students lazy. It's just easy to blame them for the thing. They have a lot of things going on. They're probably not lazy. Well, you know what? Are all of these chats about me just not being able to hear? You are so great. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. Anywho, we want to make sure that all of those are correct. So like I said before, please make sure that you are writing that skeleton and that you are working on making the edits that I give you to ensure that those are set up for success. Because even if you don't have me in the lectures in person, but you at least can start to follow that skeleton, I think it will logically make a lot of good sense for you. That said, there are a couple common problems with the skeleton. And since we're going to be going into our first main point, I would like to address the problems issue here. And that is the common problem of the skeleton assignment. Let's look here at this thesis statement, which says to persuade my audience to exercise daily. So in this case, Mateen, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Cool. Is there, so who in this case is the audience?
The people that are exercising.
The people, like it would be your classmates or the people that you want to, in fact, do what?
Exercise daily.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. And so would this be people who don't exercise daily, who do exercise daily? Sometimes don't.
To people that exercise daily.
Well, if I was exercising daily, is there a reason to give this speech?
No.
But let me say, are there going to be people in your audience of whom do exercise daily, don't, and then never want to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if somebody exercises daily, it doesn't mean don't give that speech to them. That's what we just call a reinforcement. You're simply going to reinforce the idea that they're like, oh yeah, I'm already doing a great job. Look at me. If that makes sense. So the audience we know is going to be your specific audience. Now let's see, to exercise daily, is that something that they could potentially do? Yes, obviously all this could get up and do something, exercise daily. Then we lay out the problems. So I will first describe the problems. I will describe the problems with not exercising daily, the reason that some don't exercise daily, and ways you can exercise daily. I want to remind you each, if you are writing out your transition statements, to simply take the same verbiage from the thesis and use it as your transition statement. If you'll see here, bringing it down, this will help you to use that same, make sure that you are, whatever your thesis is having the same language as your main point. So the transition here, let's look at the problems with not exercising daily. Oh my goodness, it's right there. We don't want to put in the word exercising daily and then start saying working out, or start saying like, you know, physically active. The idea that you've said exercising, keep consistent with that language. only because our word system has so many different meanings for so many words, and that culturally all words can be specific and different as to how they can be interpreted. And therefore, by laying out those words consistently, it keeps you and your audience clear on what the goal is. The other thing here is to then, so we've written the transition exactly as we did in the thesis, and then you make your first main point. There are 3 problems with not exercising daily. I want to remind you all, especially after we go over how to write the argument today, that if you start to realize this is getting really long, Amanda, remember you only need 2 subpoints for every main point. So by simply having an A and a B, that is suffice for every single one. You are simply putting your toe in this argument. Nobody is solving all the issues of, women's unequal pay or pollution through this speech. But we are sticking our toe in the argument. We're getting ourselves used to arguing about the concept. And we're also giving a practical lesson of what we can do, even in this small amount, to assist, or what we can do on this small portion that can help take away a lot of the issues that are going on. So the thing that I want each of you to now note are the problems themselves. Remember, by writing consistently a start of the sentence that lays out the first problem with, the second problem with. Remember, what's the problem? Not exercising daily. Now, here's the thing that I wanted each of you to start to take a look at. When you see something like, Natalia, are you there?
Yes.
Hi. Will you do me a favor? Do you see any issues with the main points here? The way, or not the main points, the subpoints, the way that they're written?
I think saying that it's depression, because I don't know, just the way it's written, it's I don't know how to say it, but I think that's the problem.
Okay, yes. And are you starting to see that it's a problem? And it also maybe, I don't know how to say it, because what does it make, if we put it in, if I don't exercise daily, I will get depressed. Is that a true claim?
No.
So there's the problem. The premise is already flawed, right? If we make that the claim. If I don't exercise daily, or if I don't exercise, could there potentially be a possibility of getting depressed?
Yeah, it could help with it, but it doesn't mean that you'll be depressed.
Okay, good. So it can help. That's fantastic. What then we need to do, and I'm really proud of you for looking at it like that. Thank you so much for participating, is that you have identified we are not talking about the problems of the status quo, AKA not exercising daily. We are talking about the effects from those problems. What's the problem with the system? So who's the agent in this case? Taylor, do you mind helping us out? Who is it that's responsible for exercising daily? Who's the agent?
The audience.
Right. And so as an audience member, then what do I need to, for example, as an audience member, then what's going to be the problem with what's breaking down with the system when we don't exercise? If we're talking about depression, the problem with not exercising daily is does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely more of a stepping stone to the overall effect, rather than just this causes this, which it's not totally direct. This is more of a direct.
Good, fantastic. Okay, so Taylor, if you were looking at that second one, obesity, great. But in my system, if I don't exercise, will I be obese? No. But what is this? What's the system that's going to impact my weight or my ability to keep my weight in check?
Well, your hormones again.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's also something that helps to build so that when you eat, something happens.
like your metabolism.
Yeah, right. So like exercising daily is, is a lowered, right?
Yeah.
And then, for example, okay, let's see. If we were talking about heart issues, great. What's that doesn't get worked due to me not exercising? What's in the system that's not working?
Well, your heart rate isn't allowed to be like worked. It's not allowed to be kind of like raised.
Yeah.
So it's not getting like, I don't know, used properly. Like it's not
Sure.
getting worked out.
Yeah, we need to do that, right? Absolutely. And all part of that heart, and exercising daily is a weaker cardiovascular system. Does that make sense? So now, and thanks for just your patience on my spelling here, y'all, but now what we can start to see is that the what's it called? Now the system is going to be the thing that we are identifying, and we'll be able to start to build out our arguments from claims that are in fact true, that have somewhere to go, that have something to work for. Remember, I always like to start at the end. If you know that you are, or what you have evidence for. So if you know that exercising helps with, raising metabolism and building muscles and doing blank, blank, and blank, then the potential maybe that you would want to make those your problems and show how like the opposite ways can, I don't know, how it can, if you start with the ways that it can help, you can make those your problems. Building upon the idea of your problems, let's go ahead. And does anybody have any questions? I don't want to spend too much time on the second and third main points, except for, well, I should talk to you about the third really quickly. When you are writing your third main point, remember, always write out the transition. So the transition will be the same thing, ways that you can exercise daily. No need to say anything different, just copy and paste it. Now let's see how see ways you can exercise daily. Fantastic. There are 3 ways most beneficial for college students, something like that. The first way, is by, right? And then what you will do here is put this information. The important thing is that I don't want you to get into that habit of finding, of not addressing the audience that you should be addressing. In your case, you are addressing this audience per se. And so we don't want to go here and tell us the good that it's going to do or the benefits. No, this is where you are going to walk us through some practical steps of how to do the thing that you've told us to be doing the entire time. What are your ways to do so? We don't need to prove that exercising daily is going to work in this main point, because you will be doing that in your first and your second main points. So keep yourself on track, long story longer, of keeping your skeleton consistent with the thesis statement, and you will be really good to go. I am going to, if you feel decent, anybody have any questions about that second main point? I want to make sure that, again, if you're addressing the opposition, remember that's it. It's like the reasons why people don't exercise daily. Your A, B, and C need to simply be the reason that they don't exercise daily. What are they giving? What are the reasons out there that people don't do it? I know what mine is. I say the word time, right? The first reason people give for not exercising. Something like these. So they don't like it, whatever, but your job will be to counteract them. Here, you may have a great argument about proving people wrong, or myths that individuals believe, or ideologies that have existed for quite some time. This would be a great place to debunk those myths, to show, as I like, well, no, as my friend Aristotle, as we were friends, would say, to show them the error of their ways and how they are just not logical for thinking those same thoughts, or how it's not true in that way. And I'll show you how we do that in a respectful manner rather than just like calling somebody up. But we'll get to that one on our next lecture. So everybody feel like they can do their skeleton? Get that going, get that up and moving and done. Okay.
I have a general question.
Sure.
So most of everyone's last speeches were in the 10-minute range. Is that, I guess we're just putting too much information. Like really, we need a lot less than we're doing.
So much less, so much less. That's why I always say, like, just keep cutting, like do the 2 main points if you need it. People always oftentimes feel like they need to do more. Let me say this. Obviously in any situation, you're not going to be able to continue to speak. We're really lucky because we have these videos and, you know, it's loose and whatever for right now. But in the event that you have to do this for a class someday and represent your material, your teacher is never going to give you an unlimited amount of time because they have to get through everyone. And so it's good to start editing. Also, simply taking out main points altogether is okay, because we're still going to establish like what are the problems, what are the causes, what are those ways. Oftentimes also reducing the introduction is a solid way to cut out on the time. But if you ever perchance would like me to do an edit for you, that's what's always great about having a second pair of eyes or using a tutor or anything like that. I am not attached to the information like you are, and I'm more than happy to cut it. Especially from an outsider perspective who does not know the topic, I would be glad to cut what is already clear and you don't need to be redundant with. So having an editor to always do that is helpful as well, but I'm so happy to do so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All
I
right.
also have a question.
Go ahead.
So this speech would count as our final, correct?
Yeah, this is also going to be the final speech. So no test or anything. It's just what you'll do for that time. Taylor, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering about the like number of visual aids, because I feel like I thought I got it right last time, but I feel like I ended up doing way more than other people sometimes. Like, I don't know, maybe it was like the ones I watched, like I felt like people did a couple less than I did. So I was just wondering how many we had to have for this one.
Mm-hmm. You're only required to have 1 visual aid. Your speech, though, warranted a decent amount of visual aids. Just like if we were talking about anything technical, or if we were talking about something that people haven't experienced or seen before, it's going to need it. You had somewhat of a scientific approach, so don't think like, oh, did I? Everybody's speech is their own. And when we get into the argument here, you're going to start to see that as well, that not all of your arguments will follow the same pattern. And it's really going to be up to you at this point to say, okay, I can't tell you what comes next. Oftentimes you're going to need to tell us what comes next. So it's really going to be up to you to make those executive decisions. it is suggested you shouldn't have any more than 9 for a 5 to 7 minute speech. And when we talked about it before, that sounds weird. But then when you think about like, okay, well, let me show you this picture of how this one works. And now this person is doing it. Now this person is showing it. That adds up very quick and is all incredibly necessary. So however you feel best, just know that. And as long also, hon, and as for all of you, when you're doing your recordings, like I said, as long as you are making a screen whereby we're seeing your face and we're seeing the visual aid, that's important too, because if you were in a classroom and you were showing a visual aid and talking about it, we'd want to also see your expression and how you're doing it. So know that we're keeping busy and it's not like we're getting bored by it when you do that as well. Okay. Any other thoughts, Abigail? No.
I have a little bit of a question. So do you mind sharing your screen again with the page?
Yeah.
If it's too much, it's okay.
Wait. Where is it? Oh. I like looking at us though. Okay, there you go.
Yes. So you know how like with our informative speech, we had the main point and the sub points, but then we had, I guess you could say sub points, like the 1 to 2 shit. Like, so like if I were to do the one where you have, there are 3 problems with not exercising daily. Okay, so the first problem with not exercising daily is stress hormones build up in the body. Then when I go like point 1, one of the main hormones that may cause aging due to stress would be this hormone. That's why it's important to exercise. The second hormone, blah, blah, blah. Should I go into that depth or no? Just start
Well, they
talking.
be important, that's for sure. But we don't want to talk about them being important. We want to talk about when you don't exercise, what's missing.
Okay.
So in this case, when I say to an unknowing audience, the first problem with not exercising daily is stress hormones build up in the body. My question is, why is that a problem?
Okay.
And here, what I would do, only because, again, there's no hard or fast on this, but think about it. Does my audience know what a lowered metabolism is? Does my audience know about what the problems that come from weaker cardio or a hormone, right? Hormones are weird because everybody thinks like, oh, hormones, isn't that something that just like women have? It's like, no, your hormones run your entire body, right? Stress hormone build up in the body is a problem.
Okay. I see where you're going.
So that is our first step, but that's where I'm going to go into on this riveting home place. Wait, no, I'm not going to share that yet. You know, who knows where I put it? Where did I put this? Here we go. Here. So the lecture we're going to do today, I'm going to walk you through the steps and what we'll start to see here. Some of this may be a little bit redundant from what I just said, so I'll try not to go over too much of this redundancy here, but I will full screen it just so we can see here. So remember, we are going to be working on some type of argument. Your proposition is a claim that y'all are working to prove. What in the world is a claim? Well, a claim is a statement that you're going to want your audience to believe in. Oh my gosh, Amanda, isn't that like the proposition? A thesis, a proposition, a claim, hypothesis, a statement, a topic sentence. All mean really the same thing. And that's what the hardest part is. Depending upon the discipline, they're going to use that same language to suggest that it is something you want the audience to believe. The first problem with not exercising is a buildup in stress hormones. I'm making a claim. And by suggesting that it's a problem, I'm going to now need to explain and support that and defend it. You are going to make continuous claims throughout your speech. Your proposition is a claim, and your body main points are all the argument that is going to prove that proposition, hopefully true. And your audience says, yes. However, Within each of those arguments as well, your A, your B, so your C's, those are each independent and unique arguments as well. And so the A will be built out as an entire argument that you will then believe that problem is in fact setting up a need, that we do need to do something. That other problem, yes, I have gone to the conclusion that that's a problem. Wow, thanks for that argument. And then we'll go back to it. So you are going to be creating within each of those subpoints small arguments. I say small because when you go back to a holding, is this it? I want to show you the sample in your class. Chrome. All right. If you see here really quickly, this is the sample from your module. This is where she starts her first A and goes all the way through to the end of the page. That means your A, your B, and your C have the potential to really be rather long. Do I need to make all those steps? That's what a logical argument looks like. Later on in your life, when you become experts and you are speaking to other experts or you are writing to other experts, you can oftentimes leave out parts of an argument, what Aristotle referred to as the enthymeme. And I know that sounds like a funny word, but it's this idea that we have left out a part of the premise because it already exists in the mind of the audience. This idea that he suggested that if people come to a conclusion sometimes on their own, they are more likely to be persuaded. It was a movie from so long ago, but there was this movie called My Big Fat Greek Wedding. If you've ever seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, there's a very funny part where the mom tells the daughter, I will talk to your father about this. I know how to do it. And what she has to do is make him think that it's his idea. And when he thinks that it's his idea and that he's come up with it, he's always game and excited to do something. And she knows how to make him draw to that conclusion where it's his idea. It's the same thing that Aristotle and we do oftentimes with this idea of an enthymeme. The idea already exists within the mind of the audience. And so we don't necessarily need to spoon feed them every last step. In the case of your beginning phases of argumentation, walking through an audience of whom does not know about your topic, and also demonstrating to your instructors in the future that you know what you're talking about, it's a good practice to get into the habit of. Now, let me go back. And if you see the second one, not so long, the third one, a little bit longer, right? And then going into these details. So you can always take a look at that example. It is on your Canvas page. But for now, let's come on back to the PowerPoint and we'll look a little bit at this. So each of you are going to be working on these smaller claims for this main point one, your A and your B and your C. But after those A and your Bs and your Cs, it is going to be up to you on what you need next. So like I said to you earlier, Corey, Layla, when we look, or not Layla, who was it? Taylor, it was you. So when we were looking, Taylor, and I was saying, does everybody know what that is? When people don't know what it is, we may need a follow-up claim or some kind of explanation. This is what we call a reason. And oftentimes the reason needs to be expressed to our audience. What is the reason that that is an issue or a problem? So that's where we're going to go next. But I want you to know that there is not a clear-cut equation on how to set up your one, your A, your B, your I. It's going to be up to you to think, how is this logically going to flow? Although there is not a 100% perfect structure, there are 4 steps that you can hit to know that you're accomplishing what you need to do. And so that's what I'm going to do, is just go over these steps today. The problem main point is going to accomplish these things. So it's going to establish that the status quo has a problem. In this case, not working out every day, daily, is creating problems. But we have to prove that those problems are enough and grand and really detrimental or damaging to an individual to make somebody get up off their butt and do something about it. So we really have to start to establish these problems or something that have a sense of urgency. Maybe we can make them appeal to the individual themselves. The other thing we want to establish, number 2, that out of that problem is going to come harmful effects on the individual, or if you're talking about like reducing pollution, that harmful effects on, the environment, harmful effects on society, on particular populations. That step is going to, of course, have a couple different ideas to it, but we'll go over those in a second. And then number 3, the last thing that you are going to do after you have established that, hey, here's a problem, it is representative, it needs to be done, here's the effects that come out of it, goodness gracious, these are terrible. Then you're going to say, however, if you started exercising daily, you could reduce that problem. And then you're going to give us some evidence that says so. And then you're going to say, y'all, we can help you. So go out there and start exercising daily. That's the callback to action. And so I want to talk about each of these steps, and we're going to go back to that little worksheet when we get to something called a warrant in a second. Here is something to look at, and I'm going to reduce this just so I can see all of my screen with y'all. We need to establish that the status quo has a problem. So if we have a general purpose to persuade a proposition, to persuade my audience that LMU must institute a new process of reporting in cases of sexual assault. To persuade my audience that LMU must institute a new process of reporting in cases of sexual assault, I will first describe the problems that have emerged from what, y'all? Anybody want to throw out?
From the old process of reporting sexual assault cases?
Exactly, that status quo, right? That current process. Good job. Absolutely. So the only thing that we don't know in this proposition is the process of reporting in cases of sexual assault. Why do they need a new process? What's going on would be really my question. In all honesty, if we were to put in a clarification here, it may assist in the writing process. And I want just you to keep this in mind as you go forward. To increase overall reporting. Now we know that the reason that the system is overall failing mostly is because of the reporting. Now, if I know that that's what I want to go with, because I know that my policy is going to be to help new ways of reporting, then I must put that in. Keep that in mind that some of you, when I was doing your thesis, I added on this little area so that you could have something to ground your argument in. Or if your policy was in fact that you needed that you wanted to increase reporting, then that would be something to do. When you look at your proposition, y'all, what is the thing that bugs you the most about it? Why does this not feel right? Why should LMU be working on reporting? Why do they need to help that? Or
we don't know how they already report. Like, we don't know how the process already happened.
Okay, good. So we're definitely going to need to go through that process. What's flawed with the system, right? So if people aren't reporting, that becomes a huge issue. You may want to establish in your introduction a small value. And I say this because it will help for you to identify, well, what does my audience in fact start to value? If you think, for example, things like Santa Monica College, they tell you every day that they value your well-being. They want you to be successful. They are there to help, to guide you in any cases. But you implement a policy that doesn't protect you, that makes no sense in the grand scheme of the talk and the action. And oftentimes, by establishing that in the introduction, it can also give you some good places to argue throughout your speech. If you know those values or those ideals or the premises that even, like, for example, like the United States stands on. If I'm doing something like prison reform, then I usually would establish in my introduction that there is an issue with reform in a country where our justice system, in fact, doesn't reform, and they don't do any practices to do so, or the practices they do are failing. So the system is already like inherently flawed. It's set up to do nothing. And that's an issue like that bugs me because that's like an injustice issue. Anywho, I'm going to take this out and then we'll talk about over here on the right-hand side. As part of building an argument, you're going to need to prove that that current system, referred to as the status quo, is responsible or incapable or very unlikely to be able to rectify the problem. At this point, they have caused damage. It's going to keep going on and we need hope. And that's what your policy is. So you're going to want to start each problem by documenting the system harm. And that's what you're going to be doing in that A, B, and C. And then you're going to continue to explain how that's become terrible and how it maybe even only will develop to become worse should we not have your policy. And I'm only laughing, y'all, because I'm at my parents' house and I'm hearing my mom talk to my daughter because she's getting ready for her class. So I'm so sorry if I'm sounding just a bit distracted. But all right. If we have down here at the bottom, it says the first problem with the present system is reporting initially to public safety. So let us look at the next thing. Even if I make that claim, let's say this. Even if I make that claim, let's see, who's on here? Hey, Victor, are you there?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, okay, if I make the claim, right, if I'm saying the first problem with the present system of sexual assault reporting is that students must report initially to public safety.
Yeah.
As an audience member, what do you think about that claim? If you were in danger, let's say, who would be the first person you would think about turning to? Okay. And these individuals live on campus, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Probably like someone who's important, like someone who has like security guard, something like that.
Exactly. Campus safety, it's like it doesn't make, so why? So when I make the claim, the first problem with the present system of sexual assault reporting is that the students must report initially to public safety.
Yeah.
In the average mind of an individual who's never been sexually assaulted, the question is like, well, wouldn't that be the right choice? Wouldn't they be the ones to help you?
Mm-hmm.
But going through your evidence, we found that the system potentially that's flawed is that the reporting issue. So why
The computer started off, so we have this to do.
Okay, everyone just get,
It's fine.
no,
They're fixing it.
they do know how to do it? Okay, if they don't comment, of course. So for us, that means that we need to establish to our audience why that is a problem. They may not be 100% clear. So thank you, Victor, so much for participating. I appreciate you. So once we've set up that claim as the flaw, right here, the first problem with the present system of reporting, and it is initially to public safety. If I was to, sorry, everybody, let me just close the door here. Nailing it, y'all, nailing it. Okay. Once we make that claim, our job is to start to explain and demonstrate through some type of evidence as well as reasoning how the current system is functioning to allow those problems to continue. Talk to me about what's breaking down in the public safety area that is making this such a huge issue. Like, why is this a problem? Often, like we said, if somebody hasn't been in sexual assaults, and of course the first thing you think is, okay, we'll go to public safety. Well, why is that a problem? And so if my audience is asking that question, it does not hurt to follow up with a reason. I said back in here, when I was talking about the proposition, that you may want to add it on if every single thing here has to do with the reporting. If not, and there's many flaws, and reporting is just one of the issues that they're worried about, then we can simply make that as a reason. And so what I've done here is I've said, having public safety as a first step to reporting is a problem because they are not trained professionals in managing assault victims. I then go on to make the claim. When one is uncomfortable in the initial phases of assault, the likelihood of continuing reporting decreases by 40%. That's in general. Since LMU's inception of the public safety first stop in 2017, 35 cases of assault did not proceed forward, allowing the potential harms to students and the university. That is 59 students here at LMU have potentially been assaulted and not reported, allowing not only gross negligence for the university, but possibly irreversible mental and physical damage to its victims. So what I have done in this first part is establish what about that status quo. So Brianna, you want to play along for a second?
Yes.
Okay, hey, fantastic. So what have we done here? We have established right here, we have let you know that they are not what? The reason that this is a problem is because they are not what?
They're not trained professionals.
Trained professionals, absolutely. Now, I don't know what trained professionals maybe means for the average individual. A trained professional may mean that then they're not capable to handle the emotional distress that may be going on, right?
Yes.
Maybe that's what we want to talk about, or potentially something else. But in this case, you decided, or I decided, to make that not reporting to public safety in this case is going to lead to less individuals reporting. And when less individuals report, that creates these problems and these effects and these issues. You could instead say, when somebody goes to public safety and they're not treated with, you know, that kind of thing, they are oftentimes more emotionally scarred and damaged than not. And then you just talk about that. So it's how you want, whatever reason you want to give for that flaw. Are there multiple reasons or they're not? Choose and narrow that focus down so that you have a purpose to go forward with. What did you in fact notice? Mom, can I help you? Okay, hold on one second, everybody. I just need to put in this.
I don't know if she's not recognizing because it says Jack or Queen and all that. We did get that.
Everyone, thank you so much. I needed to get her Zoom up and going. Okay, so where'd we go? Brianna.
Yes.
If I had left, when one is uncomfortable in the initial phase of assault, the likelihood of continuing reporting decreases by 40%. Why is it a problem for reporting to decrease? And what does it go on to say in the next one?
Since LMU's inclusion of the PSAFE first stop in 2017, 35% of cases didn't proceed forward, allowing the potential harms to students and the university.
Right. So it allows potential harm. So when people don't proceed, the university has the opportunity to get harmed by those claims as well as like the individuals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But if I read just since LMU's inclusion of the PSA first stop in 2017, 35 cases didn't proceed forward, allowing the potential harms of students to visit the university. This is something now that we need to like start to make sense of. And if you can go ahead and Brianna, if you're, yeah, you can totally do that. Thank you so much for participating. The important thing here is where we start to break that down. Remember, by just putting out percentages, it does not make a lot of sense to our audience. And to be able to then start to do those numbers, what does it look like? And so what we've done here is, again, the potential harms, you know, that's 59 students who here at LMU have potentially been assaulted and then not reported. Now, that allows for not only gross negligence on the university, but also possible irreversible mental and physical damages. So the problems or the effects now that I'm going to be going into are going to be establishing those problems, the harmful effects on people in the world. So I've said that there is a problem with the status quo. It is failing. It's not allowing individuals through. When people don't report, it allows for potential harms to come in. Let's see what those harms are. And you can now start to utilize those languages also that individuals wanted to, right? So like once you establish there's an issue, we can say things like the terrible effects that come from these flaws or the mental and physical issues that potentially come about. Is there a financial distress, disease? Is there absence of like being part of something, maybe being even in school, not having health care? Is there like a weight gain or something that goes on? But there's a lot of different negative effects that could potentially come out. So for example, what I do here is I go on to say something that when a student doesn't report sexual assault, shame, fear, and anxiety are 3 mental issues that can arise. I don't want to leave that as simply a claim. I want to go on and not just say, because I said so, they'll get these things. No, I want to provide you with evidence to show and prove that their shame, fear, and anxiety come up because they didn't feel safe after that first phase of reporting. And now what is happening to them? Is this making sense to everybody? Who's DJ Dollars?
That's me.
Who's me?
Daryl.
Daryl! Do you DJ?
Yeah, I'm a junior.
A what?
I'm a junior. Like my dad's name is Daryl. So that's where DJ comes in.
I love it. But are you a real DJ?
I wish.
Okay, I was really excited it was a DJ, but I like the DJ too. But in my head, I was like, why didn't you talk about that for your first speech? We need DJ. Okay, well, very exciting. So let me say this, Daryl. Evidence to support the above meaning and show and prove that harm. So what we're going to need to do is to find evidence that doesn't say that they have shame, fear, and anxiety. If that's the claim I'm making, I want to show the impacts of that shame, fear, and anxiety. Like what's going on? How are they getting? Is it that true that that is happening? So for example, we go on to lay out how this makes sense. Oops, sorry. If you can take it one step beyond these effects, that's what we are really looking for. When one is full of anxiety and fear in their daily life at school, their educational success can be greatly impacted. In a study of sexual assault victims in 2014 alone, 1,670 students dropped out of college due to PTSD experienced from being on a campus in an environment where they were not supported by their assault process. When students of assault drop out of college, their likelihood of future job stability goes down and their ability to financially support themselves in turn does as well. Today, it is estimated that 90% of sexual assault victims who have never reported will fall into the lower socioeconomic level of society. So what we have done now is hopefully provided you with some kind of like evidence to go forward. But if I take you all back, when one is full of anxiety and fear in their daily life at school, their educational success can be impacted. In a study of sexual assault victims, blah, 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 these individuals dropped out of college due to PTSD from being in a campus where they weren't supported. When I make that claim, if I said, what's the problem? Would I need to go on? Or for example, maybe that's not even saying it right. If this information here was not there, oftentimes this is the biggest issue with our friends. We will have a claim and then we will have evidence. But then what individuals do is they simply stop. They assume that our audience reads that evidence and gets like, oh yeah, that's a problem. They got PTSD, huh, interesting. What does that evidence mean in terms of what you're trying to do? You're trying to tell me that we need a new plan, right?
You basically don't want students to leave the school.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't want individuals to leave the school. But what we need to do is follow up this claim with some kind of what we call a warrant. What in the world does all of this evidence mean? Do not follow up your testimonies or quotes or evidence with, this evidence proves that it is wrong, right? Or this evidence proves it's damaging to not have support. A naive way to explain a quote in Persuasion would be to simply reiterate what the quote just said. I know what that quote just said. If your audience doesn't know what the quote said, then explain it. But what you really, your job is to do is to say, what in the world does that evidence really mean to my overall argument? Let's say, for example, friends, that I said something like, I just won $1 million. I am so frustrated. I made the claim and I have a conclusion. What do you not know?
We don't know why you're frustrated.
Because the audience already assumes that what? Winning the...
That winning $1 million is already a good thing.
Make you happy.
Yeah, like it would make you happy, wouldn't it? So why are you saying that you're so frustrated? We do this oftentimes when we present our audience with claims, and then we draw to a conclusion. We're like, so, you know, that's why you need to go out and do something. And you're like, I don't understand like why my cardiovascular system not working makes me want to work out. You haven't explained any of that to me. We need to walk our audience through all of those steps. And oftentimes we have that unstated claim, that enthymeme. We need to be able to take our audience's hand and take them on a step-by-step journey. And so I continuously am asking you the question, why, how, in what way? And that is something that we describe as a, let me just pull up this document real quick. And you'll have this document in your paper as well. Yeah. Okay. All right, warrants. So what I want you to think about right now is like you've made your claim and your reason, right? So the claim, then we give a reason to support is they're not trained experts. And your job now is to prove that claim's true, and it oftentimes is not going to mean anything without this thing called a warrant. The difference between an informative speech and a persuasive speech is this warrant. It's this place where we start to reason with our information. In the last speech, when we said something like, this cup is blue, cell phones were created in 1982. Nobody was like, what? Okay, I need backup or I need explanation. These were basic facts and details. But now when we draw to a conclusion, we have so much evidence in our head as to how we arrived there that oftentimes we need to take that step. I mean, each of you right now, think about it. How are you deciding what you're going to eat for lunch today? You're probably starting to go through 1,000,001 things. What do I have in the refrigerator? What am I going to do activity-wise later? Do I have that kind of time? Do I have energy? That doesn't taste good, right? And you come to all these conclusions so that finally you're like, I'm hungry. I'm going to have a chocolate cake. People are like, what? Why are you gonna have chocolate? Right? And you didn't walk them through all those other reasonings for thinking about it. Just simply making sure that we can get to our audience. So your warrant should not be one sentence that tells us what the data or the evidence means. No, that would be like an explanation. So if your evidence is really scientific and you need to simply explain what that means, go for it. But your warrants are going to instead show how the evidence supports the claim. That when you were in reading your evidence, you were like, oh my gosh, when they did this study, the study illuminated that individuals felt more comfortable going over there. So if LMU, right, what would we do then? I always, after my quotations or any of my testimonies, I like to ask myself a series of questions to help generate a warrant that may assist my audience, because it may not even be clear to you, i.e. when you say, I can't even articulate it, like I don't understand, like I know what's wrong, but I can't necessarily say it. Sometimes we need a little bit of a helper or a prep. So I put here these questions that can help a writer to communicate this connection can be. And so you can ask yourself things like, how does this evidence support the claim being made? Or you can say, why does this evidence support the claim being made? You can say, so what? Why should we care about this evidence? Why is it supporting material for your claim to be true? Why is this evidence so convincing? My favorite thing to do is to take any of these questions and write a sentence that uses the word because. If I did something like, and I'm not going to use the words this, that, or it's. when I write an explanation. This evidence proves that, right? What evidence proves what? Make yourself clear. So we'll say something like, a university has the responsibility to support and care for the best interest of their students. If LMU has a goal of supporting the whole student and keeping them safe, long-term effects of their flawed policy will only continue to damage students and its reputation. Something like that. And now we get to see why this evidence, simply how this evidence helps to support the claim. If I think that we need a new plan, bottom line, this is not responsible. These individuals are not getting done. In the long run, they are experiencing things like PTSD or whatever. And do I need to put that here? I could, of course. I could also put it simply at the end. Oops. Of my, oh boy, taking that away. All right, at the end of my speech as well. Here is your third step. So we've established now that there is a claim and potentially added in your reasoning for them. We have then established that there are effects and impacts that are creating damaging, irreversible, non-helped issues for people, a group, whatever. Now our job is to come in and say how your policy is going to help those issues. What is it about your policy that is going to assist in alleviating? If you're noticing the 3 different types of evidence that are going to be most important to this paragraph are going to be laying out that there is in fact a problem up there in the beginning with the policy. You're going to want evidence that demonstrates the negative effects, not just saying that they exist, but demonstrates. What does that look like? How does it impact? What is going on with these individuals? And then the last part of evidence that you are going to want is to provide us with a claim that your policy, in fact, is something that will alleviate, take away, or help to reduce that problem that you just talked about. Does it have to be exact? No. Do I have to say, when people reported here, it all went away? No, absolutely not. But if we can show at least a little bit of an improvement, that can help. Are all of your speeches going to have evidence that in fact it works? Maybe not. But will you be able to do something called analogically reason? If you remember from your reasoning or from your analogical reasoning, that is information that you can say, well, I don't have any evidence of it necessarily working here at LMU, but there's another campus who is implementing this and it's working. There's another city that is doing this. There's another country that is doing this. There's another organization that is doing something. Can we use those pieces of evidence to show that when it's good in one case, it can help also in ours? Or do you have experts who have foreshadowed and hypothesized about your policy working? Trying to find the evidence that is specific to this problem is going to be important. So for example, like it says here, if you have a policy that's, oops, sorry. Ooh, what are you doing? if you have a policy that's been used in the past, has been used elsewhere, or has experts who can prove it, in fact, will take away the problem, the effects, the inequity you have just suggested, use that now. That's what you're going to use in this next step. So I make another claim here. When public safety on campus is taken out of the first steps of the reporting process, research has shown a significant increase in following through on the next steps of reporting. And I go in with the evidence. For example, UCal had a public safety reporting in 2010 that was presenting similar lack of reporting statistics to that of LMU. However, in 2012, they implemented a counselor first step, and since have seen only 2% of initial reported cases not follow through on assault. So now I say again, if we were to go with it, and Daryl, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so now if you say it, if I said that statement, I would say, so what? What does that matter? A great way to do this, like I said, is to set up the warrant. Why is this statistic important? Because if we look at it here, oftentimes you will be able to work your warrant into a simple callback to action. We don't want you to just leave this information with these statistics. I need you to tell me that, like, why that statistic is in fact important. So the statistic is important because, or that study is important to my issue because. What I suggest for these types of warrants, as I showed you here, what I like to do is eliminate that part of this evidence proves or supports my claim because, and once you take that out, whatever follows that answer is more than likely going to be your warrant. If you see here this call to action, remind your audience, remember the policy and the action you were suggesting. So I have added on here, and I added it into my call to action. Because the first step flaw at because of the first step flaw in LMU, victims are unable to feel safe and supported. Let's see, I'm so sorry. Reporting experience, and to uphold LMU's belief in making safety of its students #1 priority, they must implement the new process. Does that explain the quote? I don't think it does, but we could add something in. If LMU was to you go?
Yeah, I already did.
You're done? This is a fast class. Safety, training community and creating safety for those victims. Support. So something like a counselor first allows for students to be seen by professionals who are trained in communicating and creating safety for those victims. That's probably the reason that they are going back in and doing this, and 2% not followed up on cases. If we needed to explain that, we could. If it wasn't explicitly played out, we need to explicitly say that to our audience. And then what we do is we simply draw back. Because the first step flaw at LMU, victims are unable to feel supported and safe in their reporting experience, and to uphold these beliefs that the university has in making safety of its students the #1 priority, we must, in fact, encourage them to implement this new process, or they must implement this new process. The 4 steps here are the ones that you will be working to implement. If you see in the sample that is in, which I had here before, one more time, let me pull this up. All right. If we're seeing this sample here, y'all, you start to see, at first I was explaining the problems that come from buying clothing from non-sustainable companies. So this individual wants us to buy sustainable clothing. She does not want us to buy non-sustainable. So she's saying there are 3 major problems. The first problem that exists is an increase in support of the inhumane treatment of human laborers, specifically women and children. What? How does me buying clothes support inhumane treatment of kids? That doesn't make any sense. So what she does is she starts to show you the error in you, which is the system, first in this #1. All right, so non-sustainable clothing, they make it cheap labor to do so. Here is what they do. This, whatever this, let's say a low amount of pay from clothing labor doesn't allow workers to even make enough to shelter, feed, or clothe themselves or their family. Companies outsource this labor, allowing for this kind of treatment. So like it says here, bleed, 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 these children, dendrication, danger, danger, danger. Here is the issue and the impact. As a result, then, however, if you bought clothes from sustainable companies, it could help diminish the effects of poor working conditions for garment workers. The individual then provided information that sustainable companies, those individuals are on the hook, that they make sure that their workers are treated well, that they ensure that these prices are right because they don't have to make this fast fashion. And then she gives us this warrant, the warrant, and then she gives us the call to action. If we stop demanding cheaply made fast fashion, non-sustainable clothing decreases, and the demand for labor also decreases, assisting in the reduction of those human abuses. So making sure that we are taking those simple steps to go forward with there you go, with the issue. I am going to go ahead and go through. Now, how many of you right now are thinking, Amanda, I have no clue what we're talking about? I think the fun of it is to simply start the process and start the writing. I want to remind you that you should be writing a correct heading and header using your Mla format. If you don't know how to do that, remember it is on your Canvas page. I want to make sure that you're writing your general purpose proposition and thesis statement. So making sure that that is at the top of your page as well. Use a proper style of indentation and symbolization. So remember that you're using your Roman numerals 1, and then you're going A, and then 1, and then I, and then A, you know, the whole thing. Make sure that you're writing everything in full sentences. I should be able to read it through as if I'm giving your speech itself so that it makes sense. Follow a logical structure, making sure that all of those 4 necessary parts, so laying out the problem, showing those like effects, giving your policy, and then making that call back to action are all there. Use at least one outside source that we can see that's going to support your claims. So if you remember, you're supposed to have sources in a couple different places, And maybe I just add this in for you. I don't know if that's going to help at all. Just say for the problem's main point, you want to find evidence that is a and I use the word take away loosely, even if it's like a reduction, if it's a little less, that's already better than what's going on when you are looking for the problem. So I know that it doesn't go in this exact way, but if you wanted to do, it's like the reason. It would, you can think of it more like this.
I'm sorry, where are you typing?
Are you seeing on the, are you on the PowerPoint?
No.
What? Oh my gosh, y'all. Sources, where do they go? Is this correct? Thanks so much. So for the problem's main point, you're going to want to find evidence that is a position, fact, or asserted truth from experts. So I was saying before, you're going to find evidence that the problem exists and is not getting better. Remember, that's in like that first part. Then you want the effects and the impacts of that problem, and you'll show evidence of the effects and of that problem. And then the third part, you tell about your policy working to alleviate, and you show evidence of it being able to do that. So those are the three places that we need to prove to our audience, and what I want to encourage each of you to look at, where they go for your problems. Is that a little bit more clear? Maybe, sort of, kind of. All right, I'm going to.
Yes, sorry, just taking notes.
No, absolutely. I'm going to save this. And what I'm going to do is I will put the new one that I just made those notes with up in our class page as well, so that you'll have that. Tonight, your skeleton is due, so make sure that you are getting that up. I will work on those, and I'll be getting the feedback back to you so that you can write your proper main point 1. And then if you have any issues about going forward with main point 1, continue to ask yourself, like, make the claim. Why does that matter? Does this count? Does my audience need to keep going with this? But remember, your job isn't to tell us that something's happening. That's what you did in your first speech. We get it. It's going on. We need to know that it's not going to get better, that the system is flawed, that it's creating problems, and we need to do something about it. And so continuing that thought process rather than just representing me with facts that are informative, that is fine. But remember, if you're going to give me informative facts, then reason with them after and make sense of them with a warrant. Why does that help me to understand that I should be taking this action? Why then is that better? And when we think about those values and those underlying ideas, remember, like, what is it that's like, why were we so frustrated in the first place that this isn't happening? And even if it's like just living your best life, or it's just, you know, people are sitting back and not active or present in the world, those can be a lot of issues and a lot of problems too. And think about even narrowing this down for your audience or your specific time period, this issue of quarantine. I was saying to a lot of people, you may just want to narrow the focus and talk about it only in relation to that. So continue to explore how this goes. I mean, we do have time to continue to develop it. But again, I am more than happy to walk you through this. I can walk you through every step of the process and figure this out. Any other thoughts? Anybody taken their COVID test at all? Oh, you did take yours, Taylor? Did you get your results?
Oh yeah, I was negative. I got it a few weeks ago because I was like, I had a sinus infection, and then they thought they were just like, just to be safe, like obviously we're just gonna have you tested, and it was negative.
I finally got mine. I did 2 of them because I wasn't getting my one from the city back. I still haven't, which is crazy. But I did the other one where I paid for it because I was like, I need to go to my parents' house because I need help. But that came back negative. But it's interesting that, you know, that's the hard part. I can't imagine how long people have been in quarantine and not getting that information back. And then that's a pickle. Potato, y'all. So many things. Is there anything else I can help with? I know that, I mean, I could do this for hours. I can sit here all day with you, but I know that you also can't and probably don't want to. So I'm going to close up if there's no other outstanding ideas. The only thing that I'm going to ask y'all is that when you post, let's see, when you're posting to the discussion board, or sorry, to the assignment, which will be here, main point 1 rough draft and main point 1 example. When you're posting here, please do so using a doc or uploading it to our OneDrive at Santa Monica, or potentially, because if you do a PDF, sometimes it's just not as easy for me to write in there, is all I'm saying. But if it's editable and do something like that, it'd be great. If not, don't worry. I will still be able to get you your feedback. All right. Any other thoughts? Where am I? Oh, no. All right, team. Then I'm going to say that we did it. Okay. We did it. Yay. So go through. You can review that PowerPoint again. If you need something beyond this class, I am here to help you. I understand that, like, we don't have a book and we don't have all those, we don't have necessarily a textbook that's going to hold your hand and do so. So if there are materials that you're like, I don't understand how this fits together and how it goes, please let me know. And I can even provide you with a better chapter in a textbook rather than particular online learning resources or something else. Again, walking through an argument, there isn't a hard and fast. Sure, we can do like a Toolman argument, but ultimately it's going to be up to your own expertise to make the decision on, okay, have I done enough? Have I explained how this evidence makes sense and why in the world they should be taking on my policy? Then let me move on. Next time in public speaking, on our Tuesday class next week, we are going to be going over developing and writing the counter argument, which is my favorite and also oftentimes very easy. But also I'm going to go over the reminders for your introduction of a persuasive speech and what you're going to want to include in order to set the stage for what you're arguing, pretty much is what I'm saying. Sound good? So that's what we'll do next week. But until then, you all keep working forward, do your research, find whatever you can, and contact me if the times don't work for any mini conference. I'm more than happy to make an office hour for you. We'll get you through this class. We'll get you going. Sound good? All right, team. Have a great rest of the week. I'll be around. You need me. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating. DJ, now that I know DJ, not just Daryl. Love it.
Yeah.
Now you're not getting away from it, Daryl.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Everybody have a great one. I will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, someday I'll learn how to work it. All right. Cancel.